this cycleway business, really big issue in Wellington. It's a big issue in other cities like Auckland as well. So I took to the streets and I asked this question. Do you reckon it's safe to cycle in this city?
Cars do drive pretty fast around here, so probably not.
It's pretty dangerous to ride on the road.
No.
No, it's not.
In some parts.
It's not safe to walk in the city either. Yeah.
No. No.
Hell no.
Oh yeah, damn straight.
Why not?
Because cyclists get in the way of cars.
I think the roads are too complex and there's too many cars and not enough space for cyclists.
Like the narrow roads, the buses, like there need to be dedicated cycleways or maybe a pedestrianised centre.
Cycleways off the road would be a good idea.
I think they should just slow all the traffic from whatever it is down to 15 k's.
What would take you to get out and cycle?
A bike. Yeah.
You don't have one?
No.
You want one?
Yeah. So if my mum's watching this, buy me a bike, please.
Fell into that one, didn't I? Fell into that one. What would it take you to cycle? A bike, smart ass. Bloody hell. Hey, actually, hands up in the audience. Hands up who rides a bike in town. Hands up. One there. Hey, you go to that person. Go to someone first, because I want to know if it's really that thorny and it's controversial here in Wellington.
It is, I mean, is it that scary or is everyone just whining?
It is that scary out there. Cars drive quite close to you, knock your elbows a little bit, turn across traffic, not necessarily that aware of other cyclists who are out there.
So you're risking your life every time you go take to the streets?
You are risking your life. It's been wonderful to see in the last 5 years more cyclists out there also risking their lives. But
what's the most dangerous thing that's happened to you?
Crossing Courtney Place and having a large truck cut across me even though I was going straight. And I skidded and stopped just in time.
Oh God, you're braver than I.
Thank you.
All right, well, back to the panel. Paul Foster-Bell, you obviously don't cycle.
I'm not much of a cyclist, Wallace, but it is something that is quite important, particularly from a...
Is it a big issue for you in Wellington?
Yeah, it absolutely is, and that's why the government's putting $1/3 billion. That's $333 million into the Urban Cycleways Programme, because it's about safety, there's environmental benefits, health benefits.
But you're putting a lot more into the roads of national significance, aren't you? You could sort of siphon some of that off and give us better public transport and better, more effective cycleways. Look at Island Bay for... Look at that. You know what? I went to have a look. I actually went to have a look at this shocking system in Wellington, Island Bay. You live in Wellington. What's the deal with that cycleway where you've got the cars in the middle of the road, you've got a cycleway, and then you've got a footpath?
I actually agree with you. It is a cock-up. There's no doubt about that. We as government invest the money, but we've got a council that stuffed it up. We should change the council in October.
All right, Chris Hipkins, what do you think?
Oh, look, I think cycleways are important. They're really, and in fact, when I was a kid, I used to bike to school every day. Kids don't bike to school now because there are far more cars on the road than there were back then, and it's much more dangerous for kids. I want to see kids back on their bikes and biking to school again, but you've got to provide them with a safe cycleway before they'll do that. And I don't think we're doing anywhere near enough to provide safe cycling within our cities.
What about you? How would we get more people cycling? About 11% of Aucklanders bike to work once a week. It's not that much, Richard. What would New Zealand First do?
Well, I mean, you've got to look at why people bike to work and the reasons why they don't as well. A lot of it comes down to weather or whether you've got things to do after work.
Do you
whether
cycle?
I have got a bike. I don't cycle as much now as I used to in the past, but I used to do quite a lot of it, including in Auckland about 30-odd years ago when it was dangerous even then, and that was in the days before helmets and so forth. But look, I think the issue that's come down to is partly what, as Chris says, that the traffic volumes are much greater than they were, but also that we've tried to retrofit cycle lanes into cities that were never designed for them. And so I think really we almost, unless we bowl the whole thing and start again, which you can't do, we've got to start thinking laterally. Hey, look, maybe just out of the box, maybe we put the cycleways up in the air, put them on poles.
What?
Put the cycleways up above the roads.
Are you going to issue a statement about that?
Well, it's an idea. It's a suggestion.
All
because
right.
what I'm saying is we have to think outside the box.
All right, New Zealand First, put the cycleways up on the pole.
There are better places to put cycleways. For example, in the Hutt Valley, there's a massive rail corridor, and the railway tracks actually only use up part of it. There's a whole lot of surplus land to the side where you could have a cycleway running the full length of the Hutt Valley alongside the rail corridor, and it would be much, much safer.
Okay.
There are places to put them.
So it's a local issue, but also, if you're in government, what could you do better to get us cycling more? What could you do better?
I think local government do need to do a much better job of planning, and they need to move cycleways up the priority order, because at the moment too many local authorities are still putting cycleways at the bottom of their priority list.
All right. Hey, hands up. Anybody? Oh, we've got a guest. Oh, yeah, Hayley.
Yes, sorry, I'm here with Patrick Morgan from the Cycle Action Network. What can we do to help cyclists?
So the good news is the government is already stepping up. This is a story about build it and they will come. So we've seen in Auckland where the the light path has been built. We've got 100,000 trips already. Tomorrow we're looking at Skypath across the Auckland Harbour Bridge. It's enough time for talk. It's time to move forward with this great project.
What about what Richard Prosser says? Should we build it in the air?
Bicycles belong on the street. It's part of city life and it makes cities work better. And that's why the national government is investing $250 million in cycling.
Should they be on the road though? Because a bike versus a car, you know who's going to come out the winner.
So design is really important. Designing protected cycleways and safer speeds for neighbourhoods gets more people on bikes.
I have to say that what annoys me is when you're driving along and there's 4 cyclists riding abreast. So do you think cyclists also have some responsibility of keeping themselves safe?
Sure, I mean the road code applies to everyone, but I want to read a note here from Carla. So I teach bike skills on this.
Are you avoiding my question?
Not at all. Everyone has to play their part,
Okay.
but design is key. So building proper cycleways is good for drivers because it gets bikes out of the way, and that's why the AA are big supporters of cycleways. So just from Carla,
Sure.
I teach bike skills. She's written to me, "Dear Patrick," that's a good start. "Thanks for helping me learn how to ride a bike. I love it." So let's say yes to Carla.
Yes, Carla. Also, what is the #1 bike skill that we should all have?
I think being aware of what's around you, so see, be seen, and communicate with other road users.
Right, see and be seen, Wallace.
Actually, Hayley, just behind you, there's a person I listen to on the radio. His name's Brian Crump. Can you, the guy in the Hawaiian shirt behind you?
Is that a Hawaiian shirt?
Well, not a Hawaiian shirt.
It was a present from a friend. I'm not sure where it was made. Probably China, actually.
Hey, Brian, don't you ride to work, don't you?
Yes, I do. Yeah.
How do you find it?
I don't agree with people who say that cycling is dangerous in Wellington. Actually, mind you, I do cycle home in the middle of the night. But I don't think it's that dangerous. I think that in the end, if you take your time, if you're aware of what's going on, as Patrick says, you make sure you're seen, you're actually a lot safer than, well, I heard you say, bikes versus cars. Well, what about cars versus Kenworth trucks? Should we get all cars off the road because Kenworth trucks are bigger than cars?
Maybe get the trucks off the road.
Yeah, well, that's another good point, yeah.
All right, nice one. Good to hear from you.
Put the bike on the train.
Some car people say that for every cyclist, every light is a green light. What do you think about that, Richard?
Oh, I think some cyclists are like that. I mean, you get discourteous cyclists the same way you get discourteous drivers.
Yeah.
I wouldn't tar them all with the same brush.
Do you get frustrated as a driver?
Oh, occasionally, yes. I do come across cyclists who I think, this person is not having courtesy for other road users. But
what about you, Chris? Because you're a cyclist.
Yeah, I think all New Zealanders could be a bit more courteous on the road, whether they're in a car or on a bike. And I think that if we were all a bit more courteous and a bit more patient with each other, we wouldn't have so many people being injured on the roads, whether they're in a car, pedestrians, or on a bike.
Yeah. For every cyclist is a green light?
Well, no, look, I think obviously individual behaviour is important, but let's have councils making sensible planning decisions and not making cock-ups like the Island Bay Cycleway.
Hey, Hayley, just around the audience, by the way, hands up, anybody who's actually cycled the Island Bay? For those who don't know, this is a bit of a hands up. Anybody who cycled? The person behind you here. What do you reckon? This is a bizarre cycleway where the cars are kind of in the middle of the road. Then you've got the cycleway next to the footpath. It's kind of weird. What do you reckon?
Well, the first time I rode the Island Bay Cycleway design, I was in Girona in Italy. And since then, I've biked similar designs, and I've found similar designs in the States, in Canada, Australia. It's a perfectly standard way of building a bikeway. When I ride it, I feel fine. I think it's a great design, and I think the City Council actually should be commended for the implementation of it, and that's what the safety audit said. The safety audit found very little that was wrong with the design.
The worst thing about cycling is the helmet hair, isn't it?
All right.
How do you deal with that?
Sorry, can you repeat?
The worst thing about cycling is the helmet hair, I find. How do you deal with that?
Well, perhaps one of the things I was going to say about the cycleway and also about adapting to cycling is it's a change. And obviously some people in Island Bay do find that change difficult. When you take up cycling, yes, you do have to think about things like helmet hair. I just started cutting my hair short. I'm certainly not going to recommend that to you.
Well, it looks great.
It looks
Wallace
great.
has just cut his hair short
It
too.
looks
You look great too,
yeah,
Wallace.
Yeah, but the thing about the helmet here, it's quite bizarre you say this, because the person who designed the National Cycleway, he said he surveyed around the country what was the one issue that stopped people cycling. Holy hell, it was helmet hair. it was helmet hair. It was helmet hair. It's bizarre, eh?
Well, I kind of get it. I get it.
Well, do you? Patrick, what do you
What
reckon?
if you're going to work and you had to, or a very important meeting?
I think the main barrier to cycling is mixing with busy traffic. That's why building good cycleways eliminates that as a risk, and it's why 1.5 million people in New Zealand ride bikes.
What did you were really, really adamant. You wanted to say something about cyclists not stopping at red lights.
Yeah, I think it's time we had a grown-up conversation about cycling, instead of getting into nitpicking about who's running red lights. And I think the evidence shows that fewer than 1% of traffic offences are people on bikes. Let's have the grown-up conversation about why cities are so slow to implement cycleways.
All right, he wants to talk like a grown-up. Fair enough.